Hello students, I welcome you to this module, Foundation Phase Mathematics Teaching. The module code for this module is FMT3701. If you want to communicate in this module, you can send your correspondences to me. I'm your lecturer, Dr. P. Govendor, or you can call me Saloj. The head of department is Professor Patudi, and here is her email address, and the departmental secretary is Mrs. Lizzie Machalejo, and her email address and a phone number follows. Remember that when you communicate with us, you need to give us your student number as well as the module name. You can communicate with your lecturer through WhatsApp, email, or my UNISA discussion forum. This is presentation number 1. We will have more presentations following as we go along. The overview or the outline of presentation 1 is as follows. It takes the shape of a snake, as you can see, a wiggling snake. First, we will go through the module overview. Next, we move on to the linkage to the related modules, the module outcomes, the module assessment, the challenges. Then we move on to Unit 1, Unit 2 on problem solving, Unit 2 on place value, consolidation, and then we would talk about preparation for the next presentation. Students, this is an overview of your module, Foundation Phase Mathematics Teaching. This module is made up of 7 units. For this module, you would need your learning guide and your prescribed book. You would use your prescribed book only for 2 units. That is Unit 2, Unit 3, and Unit 5. The units that requires the use of learning guides as well as prescribed book is highlighted in the squares, as you can see. Now, in Unit 1, we would focus on learning and teaching theories. Unit 2 focuses on number sense. Here you'll use your learning guide and your prescribed book. Unit 3 focuses on patterns in algebra. Again, your learning guide and your prescribed book. Unit 4 focuses on space and shape. Only your learning guide. Unit 5, measurement, learning guide and prescribed book. Unit 6, data handling, only learning guide. Unit 7, assessment, only learning guide. Right, so this is an overview of the module Foundation Phase Mathematics Teaching. Now, let us look at the module and how this module is linked to your teaching practice as well as other related modules. This module builds on the module Emergent Mathematics and Mathematics for Foundation Phase Teachers. This module equips you with both content and pedagogical knowledge to teach Foundation Phase Mathematics. In other words, in this module, you would learn about the content related to the various concepts, and you will learn how to teach the concepts in the Foundation Phase classroom. You will be required to apply your theoretical knowledge in your assessments through case studies, scenarios, as well as in your teaching practice module, TPF 3704. Students, we really want to see you able to apply your theoretical knowledge. So we're not able to see everything, all your application in your teaching practice. Hence, we include a lot of case studies and scenarios to see or to, for you to demonstrate your understanding of the key concepts. Now, this is the outcomes of this module. What I want to stress or emphasize here, every module has a NQF level, National Qualifications level. Now, In your first year modules, your NQF level was mainly level 5. Your second year modules are mainly NQF level 6. Your third year modules are mainly NQF level 7. This module falls under NQF level 7, which means that the cognitive demands in this module is a little bit more complex and requires more of your application and your synthesis of knowledge. So, your outcome 1 for this module is apply and evaluate key terms, principles, rules, concepts, and theories related to foundation phase mathematics teaching. Your second outcome, which you ought to achieve at the end of completing this module, is apply a range of methods and strategies to develop conceptual understanding of mathematical concepts related to number operations, patterns, geometry, measurement, and data handling in a foundation phase classroom. Module outcome 3, demonstrate integrated and detailed content knowledge of foundation phase mathematics. Outcome 4, identify, analyze, and critically reflect on mathematical problems through case studies. And outcome 5, apply a range of methods to assess learners' understanding of mathematical concepts. Now, let us look at the assessments in this module. As I said, NQF level 7 it's a little bit more cognitively demanding. So in this module, you are expected to answer questions from all cognitive levels. Here we refer you to Bloom's taxonomy. Now, Bloom's taxonomy has got 6 levels of questioning, which we categorize as lower level, middle level, and higher level questions. So your lower level is your remembering and your understanding. That is level 1 and 2. So for this module, 20% of the questions will be from lower level, where you'll be asked to remember and understand, or to recall facts and so forth. The next level is your middle level. Here, you would be required to demonstrate an understanding of application and analysis. And your middle level questions or your assessments. And the next level is your higher level, which will also constitute 40% and will require you to create and to synthesize. Colleagues, it's not all that difficult. When we ask you to create or to synthesize or to design, we are talking about your lesson plans and expect you to be able to create or to design appropriate lessons whilst you are teaching. Okay. Now, assignment 1, which many of you have completed and many of you have submitted. Once again, I thank you all. Thank all the students who have already submitted your assignment 1. It was due on the 29th of May. However, we are mindful that many students had some difficulties because of COVID-19 lockdown. So we decided to extend assignment 1 to the 19th of June. And it is made up of short questions together with guidelines. Assignment 2 is due on the 15th of July. Here again, we are considering giving you an extension. So please look at my UNISA for further extension dates. And assignment 2 is also made up of short questions with guidelines. Now, your examinations will be written in October and November. Your exams will be 2-hour duration. It will be, for now, we are saying it's going to be venue-based. But if lockdown further continues, then we may consider online exams. But we will communicate as we go along. Okay. Colleagues, On the topic of assessments, I just want to say to you, please look at your my UNISA platform from time to time, as I will be uploading a number of additional resources to help and to guide your learning. Now I want to focus on some of the challenges that many students encounter in teaching mathematics, and also in the studies of this module. Firstly, teachers demonstrate a lack of knowledge of how children learn mathematics, and therefore many teachers cannot plan appropriate strategies for addressing the various needs of students. Many students use ineffective teaching resources, or they apply ineffective strategies with the teaching resources. The third point, poor application of knowledge. Many students just want to regurgitate what's in the study guide and in the prescribed book, to the extent that when we give students different examples, they're not able to apply their knowledge to new examples, to new case studies, to new scenarios, other than what's in the book. Difficulties in distinguishing between different types of operational problems in given examples. Now, your prescribed book on number operations and problem solving has got very clear information and details on the different types of operational problems. Here again, it's critical for you to know the different types of operational problems, so that when you teach, you expose your children to all types of problems. The next point is lack of research to expand own understanding of mathematical knowledge. Dear students, here we expect you to conduct research to expand your own understanding. Please, sometimes you might find that your study guide or your prescribed book is not sufficient to give you a deep understanding of a concept. Then what do? You need to go onto Google, download articles or readings related to these topics, and expand your own understanding. The next point is limited engagement or collaboration in discussion forums. It is critical for you to engage in the discussion forums, because by engaging in discussion forums, you are going to learn from your other colleagues and from your other peers. And likewise, if you have difficulties, you post your difficulties on the forum, and you will get responses not only from your tutor or not only from your lecturer, but also from students who are very willing to assist and help you. The next is difficulties in adapting teaching to varied contexts and needs of learners. Students, we are expected to teach in varied contexts. This curriculum does not prepare you for a given context. Hence, you need to be adaptable, you need to be flexible in your teaching. So I hope that these challenges, that you bear these challenges in mind when you are completing your studies, when you are studying for your assessments and for your exams, and even when you are teaching in the classroom. Now let us move on to Unit 1, which is Learning and Teaching Theories. For this unit, you will need your learning guide only. In this unit, we will focus on what is mathematics, the teaching approaches. Here, we would focus on child-centered and teacher-directed approach, teaching and learning theories. Under this topic, we will focus on Jean Piaget, Lev Vygotsky, Jerome Bruner, and then we will move on to implications of theories for mathematics teaching. And lastly, we will focus on lesson planning. Okay, Colleagues, as we go through this presentation, I want to engage you in some kind of thinking activities. Okay, are you ready for it? Let's go. For activity 1, I want you to look at this illustration. The true meaning of maths. The M, mental. The A, abuse. The T, to. And the H, humans. In other words, maths stands for mental abuse to humans for some individuals. The next illustration, the little boy says, I hate maths. And the third illustration, the grumpy little girl says, I don't like maths. Now, after reflecting on these illustrations, I want you to reflect on possible reasons that can contribute to this notion of mathematics. Secondly, what can foundation phase teachers do to prevent such a situation? I would like you to jot these points down first before you start comparing your response to my own responses. Now, let's look at some feedback to activity 1, activity 1.1. Have you thought of these ideas? Boring lessons can contribute to the I hate math syndrome, resulting from no teaching resources, lack of exploration, and so forth. The next reason could be maths is too abstract for the very young learners. The teacher does not move the learners from the concrete to the representational to the abstract. The movement goes directly to the abstract stage. The third reason could be the teacher does not contextualize maths to improve the understanding of students. For example, here, the problems that the teachers use as examples does not relate to the, to most of the students' experiences in the classroom. Hence, the learners cannot relate to the problems that's posed to them. The fourth reason could be inappropriate teaching strategies. Teachers tend to use strategies that are inappropriate for teaching foundation phase mathematics or inappropriate strategies for even teaching the concept. Okay, now let's look at activity 2. Remember, we spoke about activity 2 was what can foundation phase teachers do to prevent such a situation? Remember that we need to encourage children to learn mathematics. We need to create a love for mathematics. We can do this by allowing children to make mistakes and allowing children to learn mathematics by making mistakes. We need to move from concrete to representational to abstract stage when you are developing concepts in learners. And also use the appropriate strategies when you're teaching. Understand how children develop cognitively. This is very important because not all children have the same developmental capacity. Some children take longer to grasp a concept. Some children might grasp a concept sooner than the others. So we need to be mindful of this. The next point is accommodate for diverse needs. And then use teaching resources effectively, especially in the foundation phase. We need to understand that we always need to move from the concrete, where you expose learners to practical examples, where they they use concrete apparatus, concrete objects, junk items, whatever items, to bring up understanding. Okay, you may add to this list, colleagues. Now that you know that we need to apply appropriate strategies when we're teaching, we need to use resources effectively, we need to understand how children think. The next concept or the next discussion is going to be about what is mathematics. If you are to teach mathematics, you need to know what is mathematics all about. So what I want you to do is, let us reflect on the definition of mathematics as taken from the South African maths policy, okay, which we often call CAPS in short. Okay. Mathematics is a language that makes use of symbols and notations for describing numerical, geometric, and graphical relationships. It is a human activity that involves observing, representing, and investigating patterns and qualitative relationships in physical and social phenomena and between mathematical objects themselves. It helps to develop mental processes and enhance logical and critical thinking, accuracy, and problem solving that will contribute to decision making. Colleagues, that's a mouthful. There's a lot of ideas in this definition. Now, I want you to identify 5 key points that you consider to be important in the CAPS definition of mathematics. After that, I want you to evaluate the first sentence. To what extent do you agree with the first sentence in the definition of mathematics for young children? Please take some time to plot or to write down some of these points before you compare them to my own response. Here's some feedback to activity 2. These are some of the points that were highlighted. Maths is a language. And what language is it? It's a language that uses symbols and notations. Maths describes numbers, geometry, and graphical relationships through symbols and notations. Maths involves the act of observing, investigating, representing patterns and quantitative relationships. Maths enhances mental processes, logical and critical thinking, problem solving, and reasoning. So, I want you to reflect now. When you are teaching mathematics, do you consider all these important points that constitute the teaching of mathematics? Okay. The next question is, how relevant is the first sentence to foundation phase? And now here, what I'm asking you to do is to critically reflect or to critically analyze, which is one of the competencies for NQF level 7. Let's look again at the first sentence. Mathematics is a language that makes use of symbols and notations for describing numerical, geometrical, and graphical relationships. Now, in the early years, my argument is that mathematics is not only a language that makes use of symbols and notations, it's a language that focuses on words, descriptions, as children engage in concrete, pictorial, and symbolic representations. Think of when children engage in block play, when they engage in practicals, the teacher asks them questions and they use words such as more than, less than, greater than, bigger, taller. So these are more terminologies or qualitative descriptions. Hence, they use language that is based on communication using the home language of the learners. Next, we're going to look at teacher-directed approach to teaching. Here, we're going to look at teacher-directed compared to child-centered approach. Look at what the teacher is doing and how the children are responding. The teacher-directed approach holds the view that skills and knowledge is acquired through direct teaching or instruction. As you can see in these pictures, the teacher is giving them instructions and the children are responding accordingly. Teacher provides information. Teaches in small groups or whole class. There's a deliberate teaching of skills, rules, using small steps. The teacher does not emphasize social skills and peer interaction, as you can see. What is happening here is that the teacher gives the instruction and the children listen and they follow. Now I want you to compare the teacher-directed approach to the child-centered approach. Look at these two pictures, and what do you observe? Yes, I'm sure you will agree that the children are busy exploring, they are engaging in talk, they are engaging in collaborative learning, as you see in the block construction. They are engaging in discovery learning. So this is what we call a child-centered approach, where learning is underpinned by the constructivist theory. The constructivist theory says that the child is the active constructor of knowledge. The teacher facilitates learning by encouraging active exploration, peer interactions, decision-making, and so forth. Now that you know what are teacher-directed and child-centered approach, I want you to compare the two approaches. In your view, which is the preferred approach in the foundation phase and why? Here is some feedback to activity 3. When you are comparing teacher-centered and child-centered approaches, I suggest that you compare using key elements. And one of the key elements is knowledge construction. Think about how does the children construct knowledge with a child-centered approach, and then with a teacher-centered approach. Yes, knowledge is constructed from the teacher with a teacher-directed approach, and in the child-centered approach, knowledge is constructed by the learners themselves. Then what is the role of the teacher? In the teacher-centered approach, the teacher is a leader. She's the authority. She tells them what to do, and the child follows likewise. But in the child-centered approach, the teacher is a facilitator, the guide, and she guides the learning process. Now, let's look at the learner participation. In the teacher-centered approach, the learners are passive. They merely receive the information and the knowledge. In the child-centered approach, the learners are active. And assessment, what happens with assessment in the two approaches? In the teacher-centered approach, there's limited assessments. Teacher assesses mainly for progression and for promotion purposes. But in the child-centered approach, assessment takes place all the time. The teacher observes, she intervenes immediately, she corrects immediately, she tries to understand the child's thinking, she tries to understand where the child is going wrong. And the form of observation is mainly through observation, it's oral and it's written, unlike the teacher-directed approach. The emphasis here is on, the emphasis for the teacher-directed approach is the learning must be correct. The answers, the learning focuses on correct answers. But in the child-centered approach, the learning focuses on errors made by the child, trials, and this promotes deeper understanding. Now let's look at the learning and the teaching theories. You can recall that when we spoke about some of the challenges of mathematics teaching, one of the problems is that teachers do not understand how children think. Hence, understanding teaching and learning theories is going to help you devise appropriate strategies to learn about how children think and to plan according to the age and the needs of learners. So in this activity, we want you to compare the contributions of the following theorists: Piaget, Vygotsky, and Brunner. And then we want you to discuss the implications of these theories to mathematics teaching. This slide provides an overview of the three key theorists: Vygotsky, Piaget, and Jerome Brunner. These are the three key theorists that we are going to focus on in mathematics for foundation phase teaching. This slide will provide you with key ideas, principles, concepts related to each of these theorists. It would be worthwhile for you to identify some of these key ideas and terminologies as you engage with learning about these When you're asked to compare the three theorists, here again, when you're asked to compare, I suggest the three theorists. Here again, compare key elements. I suggest that as you can see on the extreme key elements left side, as you can see on the extreme elements are going to be social, cultural elements are going to be social, and if you cultural look context, at social cultural context, and if you then you look at social cultural context, what is Piaget saying about the social cultural context? Piaget what does Vygotsky say about context? The social what does Vygotsky say about, and what is Bruner's contribution with regard to social and what is Bruner's contribution with regard to social culture? You compare apples for apples. What I mean here is Piaget. You compare according to Piaget, there's very little emphasis on social. According to Piaget, there's very little emphasis on social. Vygotsky, cultural theorists emphasize. Vygotsky, social and cultural context. Social and Bruner also emphasizes the social. And Bruner also emphasizes the social. The next is constructivism context. Piaget focuses on constructivism. Cognitive. Piaget focuses stages of development. Cognitive constructive. Piaget focuses on universal stages, and Bruner focuses on social constructive, pre-operational, concrete operational, the stages of development. Where he believes focuses that the child universal has to go stages, various stages from sensory-motor to pre-operational, concrete Vygotsky, on the other hand, formal operational, says that there's no universal stages of development, that the child has to go not have to wait stages for each stage. Development occurs. Learns according to their own stages of development. Vygotsky, on the other hand, much depends on the social and there's no universal stages of development or influences. Child does not have to wait believes on the for each stage of proximal development. Child learns according to their own stages of development. The teacher needs to understand, and much depends on the social and cultural and stimuli does the child need to be, and here for example, he believes on the grade zone of proximal development. And then the child, which means role, then the teacher needs to understand, provide the intervention and the scaffolding and the support to take and the child, does the child need to be, to where the child, for example, at the end of grade 1, on the other hand. And then the child, the teacher's role then is to and the provide the intervention and the scaffolding and the support, the notion to take the child from where the child is to where the child needs to be across each of these theories. On the other hand, one of the focuses on principle, iconic, and the symbolic stages. And he talks of the notion of scaffolding. Now, let us look at the key processes across each of these theorists. One of the key principles advanced by Piaget is that development drives learning, and learning is learner-centered. The learner actively manipulates objects to construct knowledge. The teacher's role is to encourage children to explore and to discover. But when we look at Vygotsky, Vygotsky emphasizes the social nature of learning and interactions. Learning drives development. He emphasizes the role of the adult in supporting the child's learning. And also, he emphasizes the interaction with peers, adults, and the cultural environment to solve problems. Bruner also emphasizes the social nature of learning. Now let's look at the role of language. Piaget believes that thought drives language. Vygotsky believes that language drives thought. Okay. So students, when you are doing comparison or when you're comparing, what we want you to do is compare an element and look at how that particular element or principle runs across the beliefs and the views of each of the theorists. Once you have made a comparison of the theorists, next you need to look at the implications of the theory for teaching and learning. And when you're considering the implications of teaching for teaching and learning, you need to look at the role of the teacher, the role of the learner, and the role of the environment. Students, I'm aware that the information is very limited in the learning guide. Hence, I uploaded some notes and some documents that's going to help you to be able to have a better understanding of these roles. So I urge you to visit my UNISA platform and download those articles. In addition, you can also search the internet, visit the different websites, and look for more readings on the role of the teacher, the learner, and the environment. Next, we move on to number sense. In this unit, Unit 2, we will focus on counting, the types of counting, number concepts, ordering, comparing, and describing whole numbers. For basic operations, here we will focus on problem-solving types, and we will look at place value. Let's look at types of counting. Such a question can be applied or can be posed to you in a scenario format. Scenario 1, teacher Nomsa gives each learner a set of 5 counters to pack out in front of them. Learners touch each counter as they count 1, 2, 3, 4, placing them down in front of them. And in scenario 2, Miss Jones taught the children a song, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, once I caught a fish alive, and thought that the children were able to count. Identify the type of counting reflected in scenario A and scenario B and give a reason for your answer. Next, I want you to plan an activity to teach verbal counting and an activity to teach object counting. Once you have completed this activity, you can compare your response to the response given here. All right. Verbal counting entails the teaching of counting through poems, rhymes, songs, and so forth. It involves the rhythmic counting, repetition, knowing the correct sequence but cannot correspond the objects being counted with the number names. And object or rational counting is where the child is able to attach the numeral names in the correct sequence to the correct object. And the child knows that the last counted word shows the cardinal value of what has been counted. The child is able to do one-to-one correspondence, is able to match, is able to count all, count on, and count backwards. Okay. Next, we will focus on anchoring number 5 and number 10. Now, I'm sure that the concept of anchoring is new to many of you. Some of you may have just heard the concept of anchoring for the first time. But what it actually means is that the child is able to see relationships in numbers related to 5 and 10. Now, using the 5 or 10 anchor, it is a foundational skill that helps learners to see how numbers relate. So what we are saying is that the child needs to have a thorough understanding of what is 5 and what is 10. And this is what we call anchor. All relationships are based on number 5 or number 10. An understanding of number relationships help children build an understanding of numbers. They are able to see smaller numbers inside of larger numbers. The number 5 and 10 provide the strongest benchmark for thinking about all other numbers. Now, I would like you to see the first example. On the right, what you would see of the 10 frames. So in example A, you will see there's 5 counters in the top 5 frame, and the bottom 5 frame is blank. So what it actually means is that 5 is compared to 10. Or we can say that 10 is compared to 5. But now, how do we say it to our learners? We can say 5 is 5 less than 10. Or we can say 10 is 5 more than 5. Now, let's practice the next example. What would you say? Will you agree that 8 is 2 less than 10? 10 is 2 more than 8. Can you see how we compare smaller numbers in relation to 10 as an anchor, smaller numbers in relation to 5 as an anchor. Next, we move on to problem solving. Now, there are two types of problem solving. One is in-context mathematical problems, which is closely related to the learner's real-life world, and it develops the learner's mathematical modeling of the world they live in. And the second one is context-free mathematical problems, where the number sentences that are solved use appropriate algorithms. Now, these are types of problems that you will learn about in your module. The first type is combination or joining type. Now, what does this mean? It means that it combines two distinct sets and calculates the sum or total of new sets. For example, Amy has 3 dolls and another 5 dolls for her birthday. How many dolls does Amy have in total? So as you can see, there are 3 dolls and Amy gets another 5 dolls. So she's combining the 3 to the 5 dolls to get 8 dolls. That is the strategy she has used. So the type of problem is combining or joining problems. The next type is static, which means that sets cannot be manipulated. Most real-life problems are of this type. For example, there are 6 trees next to the school and 3 trees opposite the school. How many rose trees are there in the school? So you would say, for example, 6 plus 3, you cannot move them, they are static, will give you 9. The next is what we call incremental measurement. Here, the addition problems that have no sets or objects that can be manipulated and involve the more concept, such as measurement. Jack's dog weighs 5 kilograms. His mass increased by 3 kilograms. What is the mass of Jack's dog? What we say is Jack's dog now is 5 kilograms after his mass increased by 3 kilograms. So what is his mass? Here again, it will be 5, it will be 3 plus a question mark is equal to 5. Now that you know the different types of addition problems, I want you to complete activity 7. Here you'll complete the table of subtraction problems. And if you look at the problem types with the subtraction problems, there are 4 types of problems: takeaway, additive, partitioning, incremental. Sorry, there are 5. So I want you to find out what is the 5th. Now, in this table, you will find that there are some responses missing in each column. Now, your task is to understand each of these problem types and strategies and to complete this table. To complete this table, please refer to your prescribed study guide. This is actually a very, very important concept for you to understand. The next activity is provide examples of the following multiplication or division problems and properties. Here again, what we want you to do is, these are the types of problems that you see on your left: additive, row by row, combination, subtractive or measurement, distributive or partitioning. Now you need to know what does each of these type of problems entail. Here you would see a combination of multiplication and division problems. Please give us an example of each of these type of problems. Next, you need to provide examples of problems that show the properties of identity element, commutative, associative, and distributive property of multiplication over addition. This means that you need to know what each of these concepts and each of these terminologies mean and demonstrate your understanding using appropriate examples. There are examples in your prescribed textbook, but please do not use those examples. We want to see your own understanding, so please use your own examples. Next, we move on to place value, which means how many. Now here, to teach place value, you need to use base 10 blocks. And even for this course, you need to show us or demonstrate your understanding of calculations using base 10 blocks. Now, because you don't have base 10 blocks or cannot physically show base 10 blocks in your assessments, your assignments, or your examination, we suggest that you draw. But you're not going to draw 1,000 little units to show 1,000 block. You're not going to draw 100 little units to show 100 block. We will show you how this can be done. So this is on the extreme left, you will see 1,000 block. And next you will see the 100 block. And next you will see the 10 block. And then the units. So let us look at this example. 100, 10s, and 1s. You will see that one block is equal to 100. And one block of 10 rod is equal to 10. And one block of 4 little units is equal to 4. So if you add all this up, it would give you 114. The one in the bottom, it's 200 and 3 rods, so it gives you 30 and 5 units, which makes 235. Next, I want to show you what does regrouping mean. Now, regrouping is a concept that you need to know when you are doing place value. Regrouping of 10 ones into 110. What it simply means is taking your 10 rods, your 110 rod, and dismantling it and making it into units. So for example, look at this calculation here. You are asked to add 200 plus 30 plus 15. Now, the quick way to do it is you need to regroup the 15 units into a 10 and then see what's left over. So look at your table on your right. You've got your 200, which remains there. And now, look at the 10s and the 1s. What we've done, we took 10 1s from the one column and grouped it as another 10 rod, put it together, and it became a 10 rod, leaving us with 5 1s. So we move the 10 rod into the 10 column. So it now becomes 30 plus 10, and we're left with 5. Now can you see how much easier it is to count? It becomes 20 plus 30 will give you 40, and 5 will give you 245. Okay? Remember, we are adding 200 plus 30 plus 15. So when we regroup, it becomes 200 plus 40 plus 5, because the 15 was regrouped into 110 and 5 units. Now that you know how to regroup, I want you to calculate using decomposing and regrouping strategy. Draw to show the use of each of the base 10 blocks. Now remember what I said earlier. You cannot draw 1,000 blocks or 100 block. So we draw a square to represent 100 block. We draw a little rod to represent a 10 rod, and a little square to represent the unit. So please solve these problems using the examples from your prescribed book as practice. It's very important that you know how to solve these problems. Now, this is the feedback to activity number 9, where I said to you, okay, let's go back. It's 36 plus 27. Sorry, let's look at one example. 64 minus 19. This is how you do it, okay? It is 64 minus 19. So what we're going to do is, what it actually means is 60 minus or take away 10, because we group the 10s together and we group the units together. So what we say, 60, take away the 10 from 19, and 4 from 64, take away 9 from 19. Can you see what we have done? We've brought the 10s together and we brought the units together. Then 60 minus 10 will give you 50, and 4 minus 9. But now we know that 4 cannot take away 9. So we've got a problem there. So what we need to do is, we need to take 110 from 50. Therefore, we say 50 minus 10, and we take the 10 and we give it to the 4. So we say 4 plus 10 minus 9. Now we say 40 and 14 minus 9, which is equal to 40, and 5, which is equal to 45. Now let us see how we can do this with the base 10 blocks. So we have 6 tens and 4 units, because 64 is equal to 6 tens and 4 units. And then we say 60 minus 10 and 4 minus 9. So when 60 take away 10, it will give you 50, as you see in the row below, and 4 minus 9. And we know that 4 cannot take away 9. So in your third step now, we took 110 from 50 and we dismantled it. We made it loose into units. We exchanged that 110 into 10 little units, and the 10 little units was added to 4 to give us 14. Now we can say 14 take away 9, and we're left with 5. So what we did was we exchanged 110 for 10 units, and we added this to the units to give you 14 units. And then we subtracted the 9 units from 14. Therefore, the answer is 45. Next, we see the example again, 36 plus 27. Now let us look at an addition example. So we group the tens together and we group the units together. So when we group the tens together, we say 30 plus 20 and 6 plus 7. 30 plus 20 is equal to 50, and 6 plus 7 gives you 13. Now, we keep 50 as it is, but 13, we can decompose 13 into 10 and 3. So then it's easier to add 50 to 10 or 10 to 50 to give you 60, and then the 3, which will give you 63. Now let us explain how we've done this using the base 10 blocks, 36 and 27, as you can see on your extreme right. So 30 plus 20 will give you 50. That was straightforward. And then the problem is 6 plus 7 will give you 13. Now we need to add 13 to 50. So what we do is that we break down the 13 into 110 and 3 units. So we take the 110 and add it to 50, and we're left with 3 units, which will give you 63. What we've done, we have regrouped the 10 ones into one group of 10. Colleagues, I urge you to look at more examples in your study guide and in your prescribed book. Please practice as many of these calculations using the regrouping and the decomposing strategy. Let's try to consolidate what we have done in presentation 1. Can you recall that we've done unit 1, which was on learning theories and its implications? Unit 2, counting, the types of counting, verbal counting, object counting, number operations, problem solving and place value. And then we spoke about anchor 5 and anchor 10 and how it is foundational to calculations. Following anchor 5, anchor 10, you've seen how important the base 10 is for calculations, where we have regrouped and we have exchanged and so forth. And then you also learned about place value strategies such as regrouping, exchange, trading, decomposition, breaking down numbers to calculate. Now, for next presentation, we would like you to practice a lot of calculation strategies, and these are some examples I've given you, and show how you would use your blocks to calculate. And I'll also refer you to slide number 19 and summarize the key points of each theorist. And also, it would be wise for you to make your own poster on how to teach the anchor of 5 and anchor of 10 in your classroom. And your preparation for next tutorial will be, it will focus on fractions, patterns in algebra, measurement, space and shape. Please familiarize yourself with the content of these units. This will enhance your understanding during the tutorials. I wish you all the best in your studies, students, and please remember that you are not alone. We are there for you. We know it's COVID-19 pandemic, but we want you to make a success of your studies. Engage on my UNISA platforms. Please, we are just a phone call away. You just write us an email if you have any problems, and we want to see each and every one of you succeed in your foundation phase mathematics teaching module. And all the best, colleagues and students. Thank you.